welcome to the latest episode of the Nothing But Locks podcast. I'm your host, Ali Melnicki, accompanied by my favorite coworker, Robert Kowalski. How you doing today, Robert?
Ali, doing great. Thanks so much. Looking forward to
Awesome.
taking a look at week number 10. Hopefully get some intrigue in this episode.
Yeah, I did hit both the under and the Panthers last night in my office pool. I always take unders on Thursday nights, so that's no surprise. I did like Carolina getting points at home, but I did think they would end up beating the Falcons. Who did you take last night?
Yeah, those dogs always. I honestly thought that Atlanta would have had a better showing, but no, not meant to be. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just those Thursday night blues. They just don't come out. Someone's got to win though. Home team definitely looked better last night.
Yeah, that's for sure. I do think that we might be seeing Desmond Ridder sooner than you would have told me about maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I lost back-to-back games, but enough about those teams. So let's move on to this week. We got some marquee games. We also have a lot of key injuries and a lot of guys that are questionable, not sure if they're going to play yet. So why don't we start with the Vikings and Bills, Robert? What are we looking at here? We know Josh Allen is questionable whether he's going to play. I know he didn't practice yesterday, so odds aren't looking good he's going to suit up. What are we looking at, though, for the spread right now?
Yeah, this one is obviously if in a quarterback driven league, there's clear indication that this line has moved heavily off of him. Ali, I opened this game nine
Wow.
points the better hosting Minnesota, and that number went to 8, 7.5. It just went down the ladder from there. 7, a little bit of a pushback, then down to 6.5. And then once it was realizing that this UCL injury is very serious, it cracked the 7 down to 6.5, 6. Just keep on going to where we are this morning. Buffalo is a 3.5 point favorite, and I could tell you now, if you like Minnesota, well, you missed several trains, but there is one more step left. And when they do announce that Allen is not playing on Sunday, I'll close this line probably at 2.5. So it ain't going any higher, that's for sure. This is the highest Buffalo will be a favorite, even with him starting. So if you like a dog here, this is where to play it. The total opened as high as 48.5, Ali. It's now 43.5.
So I'm not going to overreact in this one. I know Josh Allen is on a different level when it comes to quarterback production this year. He's probably the best in the league, if not one of the top 3. So if you're looking at the spread, if you show me it today, I'm still taking Buffalo. I know the Vikings are only have one loss on the season. I think they got lucky with a lot of their wins. I've been saying that I'm not as high on them as I have been with other teams. So I still like Buffalo. Case Keenum, I believe, is Buffalo's backup. He's still a competent quarterback. I think that he knows the Vikings still because he did play for them for several seasons. And let's just take Josh Allen out of it. Robert, the Buffalo Bills still have a top defense in this league. I know they just lost to the Jets, but that was more of an anomaly loss. I still think that they will limit Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. You saw the last time the Vikings played an elite defense was against the Eagles, and Cousins was awful through 3 interceptions. I think that the Bills defense are still going to rattle Cousins. I think Case Keenum's going to do enough to keep the Buffalo Bills ahead. So I'm siding with Buffalo right here. How about you?
You know, if again, and this isn't a show about, who did you bet? No one really cares about that. It's what number are you likely to play today, right? And as we looked at this line move, your any kind of value in grabbing Minnesota is clearly gone. That being said, I don't think Allen plays. And if he doesn't play, I don't think that 3.5 is going to be a coverable number, in my opinion. So, yes, the defense will be great. If I had to choose a side, it would be Minnesota plus the 3.5. But I definitely would be on your side to go under the total as well.
Yeah, the under is a definite for me. I always like good teams with backup quarterbacks. It's one of my someone taught it to me a few years ago. Don't overreact when an elite quarterback is out because elite quarterbacks always have solid backups. And Case Keenum, don't forget, a few years ago, he did get Minnesota into an NFC championship game. So not saying he's anywhere near Josh Allen's level, but he's there. I think they're going to run the ball a lot with Singletary. Stephon Diggs is still one of the top receivers in the league. -3.5. I still think at home Buffalo covers. It might be different if they were in Minnesota, but I'm back in Buffalo on this one. All right. Well, we'll see that it'll be an interesting game. I think the Vikings really have got lucky. I mean, Robert, if you look when they played the Dolphins, they were starting Skylar Thompson.
Yes, they were.
When they played the Detroit Lions were missing half of their guys. They played the Bears right before Justin Fields started getting good. So the Vikings really have been lucky the past few games. So
7-1. A lot of people question the Jets and Giants records. Look at Minnesota; they're 7-1. I mean, they're clear division winners. Right now, I'll just go ahead and crown them that. But you're right. You look at their body of work, and I mean, initially, that first loss against Philadelphia, they lost 24-7. They looked really rattled. They looked out of place, and they've won ever since. Very, very big test here. We'll know everything that this team is about for the rest of the year, and if they are in fact championship caliber after the game in Buffalo.
For sure. So let's move on to one team that looks like they're headed to the playoffs, and the other team that has been the biggest disappointment probably in the NFC this year, at least one of the biggest disappointments, and that's the Cowboys and the Packers. If you had told me at the beginning of the season about this game, I would have been so excited, so looking forward to it, because I love watching Aaron Rodgers beat up on the Cowboys. But that's not the case this year. So, Robert, what are we looking at for odds here?
Opened up the Dallas Cowboys early morning as a 5-point favorite in Green Bay. Bet down to 4, and that's where it's sitting right now. So Dallas 4 and the total 44.
I actually like the Packers to cover here. I know that the Cowboys are coming off a bye. I know that the Packers just have looked abhorrent lately. It's been just so ugly. They lost to the Lions ugly. They really didn't have a shot against the Bills. So I understand why people will be jumping on Dallas. People like to jump on Dallas. But I think that in Lambeau, I think that Green Bay does step it up. You have to remember, Green Bay, I mean, Aaron Rodgers hated playing for Mike McCarthy for years. This is kind of a revenge game. Mike McCarthy coming back to Lambeau. The boos are going to rain down on him. I think the Packers are going to show up on this game. I know that I always say when a team's at its low, sometimes that's the best time to bet them. And for me, this week is for the Packers. I'm not saying the Packers will turn around their season. Far from it. But I think if you look at it, I think that they match the defense of the Packers matches up well against the Cowboys. I think they will limit Dak Prescott. We know Zeke's still not 100%, but still Tony Pollard should be fine. But I think Dak struggles against the Packers defense. So I'm siding with Green Bay to at least cover on this one. How about you?
That's fair. I was definitely leaning Dallas wins. And then I wanted to say, well, if they win, they cover. There's an outside shot. I think that Green Bay does get a chance at the cover, but not the win. No way, Allie. Dobbs for the Packers. Romeo Dobbs is going to be doubtful. His ankle's still swollen. Christian Watson is up to probable now from a couple of days ago. And again, they're going up against probably, among the best secondary in the league in Dallas. Is like you mentioned, Zeke Elliott looks like he's going to be back. His knee is probably close to 100% as it's ever been. So they get deeper in the running game. I think they'll be able to control the ball enough to win with an outside shot of a cover. So I'll think that the Green Bay Packers do cover the 4.5.
All right. And this is another one where I would probably lean toward the under. What are you looking at for the total?
That's exactly right. And so I think if the Cowboys are held to less than 20, possible. I don't know if it's probable, but if they're held to under 20, I could see this going 2016, 2017. So yeah, I'd say go under as well.
All right, let's move across the seas. We have our first game in Germany this weekend, Robert. I know that kickoff will be about 6:30 a.m. on the West Coast. I figure I will wake up and in honor of the game being in Germany, I'll have a nice German lager with watching the game. Not my usual mimosa when it's on this early. So I'll stick with the country. I'll honor Germany. Maybe I'll order a nice big pretzel to snack on as well. But what are we looking at? We have the Seahawks and the Bucks. We know the Bucks bounced back a little bit last week. They had vintage Tom Brady led them to a game-winning drive against the Rams with less than a minute to go. Seahawks just keep rolling. What are we looking at for the spread here?
Yeah, great game. I'm excited to watch and see. Germany has been really taken to NFL football, and that stadium, Alliance Stadium in Munich, Germany, is going to be packed. So I'm really excited to see how well Europe really does love American football, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Hope we can kind of pay back the favor and start to I suppose we are starting to support soccer here far more than we had even 3-5 years ago.
Right.
I digress. Tampa Bay. So we opened up the Bucks as a 1-point favorite. Wouldn't you believe? We actually had a bet down to pick. And then the money started to come in pretty heavily on Tampa nonstop. 1.5, 2.5, up to 3. And today, I think that was the ceiling. So now it's down to 2.5. A little bit of juice on that 2.5. So 2.5 minus 120, and the total 44.5, Allie.
When I saw the spread, I jumped all over the box. Again, I haven't been a Seattle believer all year. I did write in my blog on Monday after the Seahawks beat the Cardinals that I'm starting to fall into that category. I do believe Seattle is not going to go away, but I believe this week they lose. And I'll give you a few factors why. First of all, traveling all the way from Seattle to Germany is very different than traveling all the way from Tampa to Germany. Not only is that a huge time difference between East Coast and West Coast, but that is a much longer time you have to be on the plane. Don't think that that's not going to affect these guys when they play on Sunday. When they play on Sunday kickoff, if their bodies are still jet lagged, which it will be, they're going to be used to it being 6:30 a.m. That's a big difference, especially since how many hours they're losing going all the way to Germany. So I think that's going to factor in a lot. I think they're going to be sluggish. I think Tampa Bay's defense is really going to limit Geno Smith. I think they step up against Kenneth Walker. And I think Tom Brady finally gets on. It looks like he's finally found some rapport with his tight end, Cade Otton. He's really been the savior the past few weeks in that passing game. There's no way Mike Evans is going to drop 4 or 5 passes like he did against the Rams. So for me, Robert, I'm siding with the Bucks to cover on this one. How about you?
Yeah, it's such a short number. You would look at this and say, yeah, this looks like quite an easy cover. Heck, it'd be quite an easy cover if this was even in Tampa. But as it is, neutral field, if I had to guess, Seattle's got the run option down 100%. No one runs it better than they do right now. And I don't know if Tampa's quite ready for this one, Allie, to be honest. I think Seattle gets the win here on the neutral ground. But this one's going to be really rough and tumble. 1st to 20 wins this one for me, Allie.
Yeah, this is totally an under for me too. I do think that the time difference of traveling, I think it does factor into how both teams played. The Bucks just aren't a good scoring offense nevertheless. I don't know. I just feel like that game last week gave the Tampa Bay Bucks something to look forward to, something to drive on. So that's why I'm taking Tampa, but definitely the under on this one. So you and I, Robert, we agree on one pick so far. So it's good to get some discrepancy early on in the episode. All right, let's move on to the other game I wanted to highlight, and that's the Sunday night game. And we have the Chargers and the 49ers. Chargers, they came back to life last week against the Falcons. It looked for the majority of the game like they were going to lose. At the closing seconds, it looked like they were going to lose again when they fumbled, but miraculously, the Falcons defender fumbled as well. Chargers ended up winning their second place in the AFC West. The Niners coming off a bye week. They have Christian McCaffrey. So what are we looking at here, Robert, for the odds?
Yeah, Allie, the 49ers opened 7 and it hasn't moved since. It's still a solid 7. The total is now 45.5 for the game in the Bay Area.
So I want 2 things. I like the over on this one. I know we've been saying under all game. I do like the over on this one. The Chargers can score and their defense is terrible. So the Niners are going to score against them. So that's number 1. Number 2, I'm not going to bet it, but for office pool purposes, I'm going to side with the Niners on this one. And I'll tell you why. I just think that the Chargers have way too many injuries still. Mike Williams is out. Keenan Allen is out. They still have issues on defense. I think not having Rashawn Slater all year really has affected Justin Herbert's play. I haven't started him on my fantasy team in the past few weeks because he just hasn't done anything. And when you look at the Niners, I think the Niners you saw before the bye week where they just exploded in the second half against the Rams, I think that's the Niners you're going to see for the rest of the year. Christian McCaffrey can just do it all. And I would say if you're playing any kind of daily fantasy this week, grab Christian McCaffrey because against that Chargers defense, he's going to probably run, pass, and score touchdowns all over them. Catch as well. What do you think, Robert?
I say that the Niners do not lose this game. There's a very minute, and by minute, I actually would probably pass. I think that there's a small chance for the Chargers to backdoor cover after getting run up, but there's just way too many key injuries on players that were counted on to be key contributors to a Super Bowl title this year. You mentioned Slater. He's insanely talented. He's been gone for over a month now. Bosa, we know about him and his impact. He's also out of, these players were key contributor, Pro Bowl caliber players. Forget about, the most current news, of course, Keenan Allen, he's still going to be absent. Pretty certain about that. Dustin Hopkins, right? So he's questionable. So I'm not sure if their backup kicker is going to be, of any value. They'll probably look to go for it on fourth down more than ever. And then, of course, there's Mike Williams. He's out indefinitely. So it's basically Austin Eckler or bust. If I know that, then the Niners certainly know that as well. So I really do think the Niners will have an opportunity to open this one up early and really, really be up a pretty significant number going into the tunnel at the half.
Yep, I agree with you on that one. So let's move to the last game that I want to highlight before we get into our rapid fire round. And that's, of course, the Texans and the Giants. I wasn't going to leave the Giants out. It was nice to have a week where I didn't have to stress last week. That's why I do like bye weeks sometimes. I can just watch football and enjoy it. So, Robert, what are we looking at for the spread here?
So strange. I opened up the Giants a 6-point favorite. And the total was 38.5. It got bet up to 40.5. But then the Giants line was pretty much like a roller coaster from 6 to 7, down to 6.5 to 7.5, sat at 7 for a bit. Now it was 6.5 2 days ago until yesterday when it dropped down to 4. Yeah, yesterday it dropped down to 4.5. And I'm not sure if that's just coming off of the injury report news, but for it to be 7.5 and then drop down to 4.5, that's clear indication that the Giants are going to be without, some key players. And what's standing out the most? Well, they got line damage. Shane Lemieux is going to be out. Pretty certain for that. He's going to be a key contributor in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're looking at the other side of the ball, there's Brandon Cooks again. He's questionable because he injured his wrist. So
injured his wrist.
I think that's a pretty funny little injury connotation. But yeah, so 4.5. Why are we doubting this one? I mean, if the Giants are going to lose this game to the Houston Texans, who have one win on the year.
No. And I say that as both a Giants fan and definitely even just a sports bettor. I am all over the Giants on this one. There is nothing to compel. I said it last week, even though that the Eagles didn't cover against the Texans. I'd rather be wrong going against the Texans this year than be wrong going for the Texans this year. This team is tanking. I don't care how much they're trying. Davis Mills is not a quarterback of the future. They're going to probably get the 1, if not the 2 pick. Bryce Young or CJ Stroud's going to be quarterbacking Houston next week. There's no way. Houston has the worst defense. Let me rephrase it. The worst rush defense in the league. You don't think the combination of Saquon Barkley and what Daniel Jones can do with his legs isn't going to run all over that defense? I don't care how many wide receivers are out. You're just going to have to pound the ball the whole game, and you're going to get through the Texans' front 7 easily. I don't understand how the spread's going up and down. I still think the Giants just aren't getting all the respect that they deserve. But Robert, I mean, I can't see any way the Texans I don't see them upsetting them, and I don't see them covering. Do you?
One would think that this is as easy a handicap as you can have all season long. At 6.5, 7, I'm like, maybe Houston covers.
Yeah, backdoor. I can see that.
For less than a touchdown, I think this is the one where the Giants pick up the win and cover the spread, Ali.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And we did have Xavier McKinney. Unfortunately, it looks like he's going to be out for this weekend because he was ATVing in Cabo on his week off, which I'm sorry, if you're stupid enough to do anything reckless in the week off, like I have no words for that. But we did lose our promising cornerback the rest of the year. Well, safety, I should say. But yeah, we are going to be short. I understand that. But Robert, we've been short all year and we've still been winning. So the fact that we're going up against the Texans, it doesn't faze me. We could be going up against the Commanders, the Cowboys, even the Eagles. I think the Giants have a chance in any game that they're in. You're going up against the worst team in the league. There's no way for me to see the Texans actually competing in this one. I'm going to lean toward the under again on this one as well. What are you looking at for the total?
I agree. It's a very low total at 40.5, but yeah, I think again, first to 20 wins this game.
Yep. All right. Well, we agree on our Giants at least. All right, let's move to the rapid fire round because we're halfway through the episode and running out of time. Let's start with the Colts and the Raiders, two just teams whose seasons are just dead on arrival. What are we looking at for the spread here?
So we opened the Raiders in what I think is a pretty significant overreaction as it got bet all the way up to 6.5. It also, in a similar vein that the Giants path took, albeit, two different stories. The Raiders now 4.5, Ali, and the total 41.5.
I like the Colts in this game. I have to say, after watching the Raiders the past few weeks, there's nothing that could compel me to say the Raiders should be that high of favorites. They just shouldn't. They blew a 10-point lead to Jacksonville, couldn't score in the second half. They were totally dismembered by the Colts the week prior. I know, not the Colts, the Saints the week prior. I know the Colts have had their struggles, but they did just fire their head coach. Teams kind of play motivated after firing their head coach, I found in recent years. Plus, you're getting Jonathan Taylor back. He was a full participant in practice. He's going to pound through the Raiders defense. I wouldn't say I like the Colts to win, but that is a high number to lay with a Raiders team that is just not good at all. So I'm going to take the points here. How about you, Robert?
It's similar how I was doubting Seattle all year. The Raider game is probably one that I probably just overthinking, right? With a total set to 41.5, that's set right because the Colts simply can't get out of their own way at this point. 4.5, I mean, forget about Ali. You actually said 10. The Raiders were up 17.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And they lost that one, to the Jaguars. I think this is it. This is my last breathing attempt with the Raiders. I think they win and cover this one easily.
All right. I'm interested to see Monday when they don't cover.
Circle this game, please.
And then the Raiders will be going toward the Exorcist label as again.
Or worse.
Oh, boy. All right, let's go to the next game. The Rams and the Cardinals, some injury issues here. Matt Stafford's in concussion protocol. He's questionable. Cardinals have some injuries of their own. What are we looking at for the spread here?
I'm glad you brought this game up. We opened the the Rams as a 3-point favorite, got bet up quickly to 4. And then on news of Matt Stafford's concussion, got bet down to 1.5, but Ali, late breaking news as we speak. Looks like Kyler Murray injured his hamstring just moments ago. And so now as the game goes off the board, I think we'll make an adjustment up to 2.5. And if we're going to see a quarterbackless game, this one's going to be tough to handicap. But let's go ahead and look at this game from this perspective with the news that we have now. The Rams 2 and the total 40.
So I'm going to base it off the assumption Matt Stafford's not playing. I don't think he's playing. That being said, his backup, John Wolford, I think he's a competent backup. I mean, Robert, we were talking a few years ago when he went in the game for Jared Goff and was leading the Rams to victories, if he should be the quarterback over Jared Goff. I think John Wolford's a competent backup, and I think the Rams might actually be even better with Wolford, considering how Stafford just hasn't played well at all. So that's on the Rams end. I think that Stafford's injury isn't a big deal. I think that they might even actually be upgraded for this game. with Stafford out. Now, if you look at the Cardinal side, let's think Kyler Murray is going to play. I still love the Rams. Kyler Murray is 1-6 versus the Rams in his career. And that's not even including in the postseason last year where the Rams just completely embarrassed them on that Monday night game in the wild card round. Whether Kyler Murray plays or whether Kyler Murray doesn't play, I don't think it's that big of a deal when it comes to my betting perspective. I'm still siding. I'm totally 100% still siding with the Rams. I know Colt McCoy is backing up Kyler Murray, but it seems like Colt McCoy's just been in the league for 20 years. I don't think that he helps the team out at all. I'm with the Rams on this one. How about you?
That's spicy. I can't follow that up.
Yes, you can.
Okay, you're right. So if Stafford's out, let's say Stafford's out, let's say Murray's out. If that happens, I say Rams easy. If Stafford's out and Murray's in, I think you're right there. I mean, they've amassed nothing with him. How can you get it any better? So regardless of injuries, yeah, I'll go with you here. You're right. Rams definitely win and cover.
Yeah, and then I'm back in LA too now this week. So when the Rams win and cover, I'll hear how the Rams season is saved. The comeback. I hear it all the time with Ram. I will say, and I know that we have some Rams listeners, but you guys are the most fair weather fans in the NFL. I'm sorry, but you are. It's LA. Chargers are at least loyal because they're used to losing. But you guys, whether if you're not winning, you're not there. All right, let's move on to the next game, and that is the Lions and the Bears. Give me the over on that game. I know that for sure, Robert. What are we looking at for the other odds?
That's a great point. You're right. This one was again to figure out the Bears or the Lions this year is to get a Nobel Peace Prize. The Bears opened up 2, got them up to 3, bounced back down, but it looks like I'm still getting more on Chicago. So I'm sitting at 3, a little bit of juice on that if you want to grab 3 points with the Lions. So it's 3 even on the Bears. The total's 48.5.
I've heard nothing all week except how Justin Fields is finally coming on his own and to be an elite quarterback. It's like, no, I know he's had a great rushing game the last 2, maybe 3 weeks, but this is a guy that still can't pass, and their offense doesn't trust him enough to pass. He gets another easy matchup this week against a Lions defense that is just terrible. I do think he's going to have a good game, though. I do think that he's going to use his legs more. They're going to rely on Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. It's going to be a run-heavy game, which I think that they are going to be able to exploit the Lions. But on the other end, the Bears defense is just as bad. They traded away Robert Quinn and Roquan Smith right before the trade deadline. Let's not forget that. We saw how Miami just threw at will against them last week in Chicago. I think the Lions are going to do the same here. I think that Jared Goff and Amon-Ra are just going to connect the entire game. I think DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams are going to run all over the Bears. This is going to be a high-scoring game. When I look at the spread, I like the 3 points I'm getting with the Lions, whether they win outright or I still think they're going to cover. So I'm backing the Lions here. How about you, Robert?
I think that there's a chance that they go over the total at the half.
It is a very good chance.
there will be so many points scored, and I really, really love. I don't know what happened if they just got the coaching staff in Chicago just got hit in the head, or what happened, but they finally realized, what, we're trying to put the old square peg in the round hole, and they just let Fields be his very best, and boy, did he break out. So I see Fields as, well, first off, as a really great daily fantasy option if we want to go ahead and put a little bit of that into the stew. But I honestly think that we're seeing an instance where we can pick up lots of points early. And so the total is far more favorable to go over here than to lay the side. That being said, though, if I had to pick the winner here, I would pick Chicago, though, Allie.
All right, let's move on to the Browns and the Dolphins, Robert. What are we looking at for this one?
Lots of points again. The Miami Dolphins opened up 4, got bet down to 3.5. That's where it's at. 3.5, the total 49.
So I know a lot of money's coming in on the Dolphins. People love Tua. People love that offense. I give him nothing wrong with that. I totally understand it. But Miami's defense is still bad. Even with the acquisition of Bradley Chubb, it's still bad. When you look at the Browns, while their offense doesn't stick out, they have the duo of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt that can run all over defenses. I think that they pound the ball in the ground a lot. I think Jacoby Brissett is efficient. So I'm not only taking the Browns 3.5 to cover, I'm taking them to win outright on this one. This is one of my big upsets of the week. I know everyone's on the Dolphins bandwagon, but I think that their defense does them in on this game. What are you thinking, Robert?
It's a bit of the opposite, Ali. Good thing we're not reading from the same script. I saw Miami's offense, pretty much top three at this point.
Yep.
You have to choose. How do you want to die? You want to go fall off a cliff? You want to get tossed off a bridge? There's so many ways that Hill and Waddle could beat you. And again, we haven't even talked about Wilson being added to the mix from a running game perspective. That being said, Cleveland's running game is also very, very potent. I think that it's going to be a bend, don't break type of a atmosphere in Miami where Cleveland will pick up chunk yards. I don't think they'll hit the end zone enough. Lots of field goal attempts. You're not going to win with field goals, especially in Miami. I think Miami wins and covers.
All right. Well, another disagreement on this one. Let's move on to the Jaguars and the Chiefs. What are we looking at here, Robert?
Kansas City really needed every last bit of Patrick Mahomes last Sunday to beat the Tennessee Titans. Don't think they're going to need that as we opened up this game a solid 10, got a little pushback. So now it's 9.5 and the total is as high as any game this weekend, 50.5.
So I went back and forth on this game. At first, I love the Chiefs. I think that everyone's going to overreact to them playing close with the Titans. The Titans are on a totally different level than the Jaguars. And then I leaned to the Jaguars just because I thought 10 points is just way too much. And then when I thought more, I realized the Jaguars aren't a good team. The Chiefs are. So I know it's a big number, but I like Kansas City here. How about you?
Yeah, I do as well. Not much really here to look at. Rayshawn Jenkins is probably still in concussion protocol, and it's probably going to, not help, being that he's a key contributor in the secondary there. So I do think Kansas City picks up a double-digit win here.
Yep, totally agree with you on that one. Let's move on to the Saints and Steelers. Robert, what do we have here?
So New Orleans, I don't know, maybe it's just something about them playing at night because they sure did look bad on Monday night. We opened up the Saints as a 3-point favorite, and in the what have you done for me lately world, it got bet all the way down to 1.5. The total very low, 39.5.
I do love the under on this one because I still think the Steelers don't score as much. So I did take the Saints at first, and then I heard the news that TJ Watt is coming back for the Steelers. And that changed my entire opinion on the game. It's amazing sometimes one player can change your entire opinion. I think that TJ Watt being on that defensive line is totally different than any other defender. Well, maybe a few, maybe Micah Parsons and Aaron Donald, but I think TJ Watt brings so much energy, so much pressure to that offense, to that defense, I should say, that I think he's the difference in this game. He's going to be pumped to be back. I think that he's going to pressure Andy Dalton to throwing mistakes. They're still very sparse when it comes to the receiving core. Michael Thomas is out for the year. So with that, I'm taking the Steelers on this one. How about you, Robert?
Yeah, I did see that, and I was concerned, especially not only that, but now, Marshawn Lattimore's questionable. He has a foot injury, so not quite sure if he's going to be 100%. And then again, really not quite sure if Pittsburgh's going to have much to throw to. This is going to be pretty much a battle of who's the least worst of. And at 1.5, that number is just short enough for me to say the Saints escape Pittsburgh with a victory and cover.
All right, let's move on to the Broncos and Titans. Robert, what are we looking at here?
Right. So obviously we talked about that Tennessee-Kansas City game. We opened up Tennessee as a 3-point favorite. He sat there, still 3, and the total pretty low, 39 as well.
So do we have word, is Tannehill playing or is it Willis?
Well, at this point, the latest notification is that he's now upgraded to probable, and that tells me he'll be playing.
So when I hear Tannehill's playing, I like the Titans a lot. I already think that Derrick Henry is going to run all over the Broncos, considering the Broncos don't have Bradley Chubb anymore to shore up their run defense. Even if Malik Willis was playing, I would probably still lean Titans. I don't think that the Broncos are good at all. I still think they struggle to score. The Titans have a very good defense, so I'm going to go with Tennessee here. How about you?
As well. I agree. I think they win and cover, coming off of a game where they literally had a 17-9 lead in Kansas City on prime time with just 11 minutes to go. I don't think that they're going to have remotely close to a danger from an offensive standpoint hosting Denver in any way. So I think they do get the win and cover here as well.
All right, then let's move on to our final game of the week. And we have the Commanders and the Eagles on Monday night. Can't wait for that one. Hope everyone notices my sarcasm. What are we looking at for the odds here?
The Eagles are now 8-0, and they are an 11-point favorite hosting the Washington Commanders. The total set to 44. You're absolutely right, Ali. Not really much to talk about. I'm not quite sure what it is with Washington and their fan base. They just love Taylor Heineke for some reason. It's just doesn't make sense. He's not really that good. And he's, this one's probably going to be elementary with a pretty easy Eagles victory.
I think it's an easy Eagles victory, but Taylor Heineke, for some reason, he's still 3-0 against the spread since he's took over as the starter. So I think that it's just a high number. I think that I agree with you. I think the Eagles win, but I think there's a chance that Washington gets a backdoor cover in this one.
Sure.
So in that case, I just think it's too many points to lay, and I'm going to take the points with Washington, but I think I'm going to take the under as well. How about you?
Under, definitely. I could definitely see this game going under that 39. There's a reason it's that low. Heck, as a matter of fact, I already see some of my colleagues going down to 38.5.
Yeah, I just don't see how Washington really scores much in this one. But I will say one thing, it is a division game, and you still have to take that into consideration. Division rivals do kind of play up to each other. So for that, I will take the point just for office school purposes. I'm not going to back the Washington Commanders with any of my money, but I will take them to cover. All right, well, that's all our games for today, Robert. So before we do sign off, I know there's a few people still left in Survivor League. So who do you like for picks there?
This is going to be pretty insane. I know, that some of you lucky ones might still have Kansas City. That's a pretty obvious choice. But if you're looking for a team that's going to be backed not heavily, that has a chance to win here, I have to go back to the Raiders. I know this one's probably insane to back a 2-6 team, but it just kind of lines up the right way for a victory here. Not much here at all. The Colts have waved the white flag weeks ago, and I think the Raiders are probably as strong and probably as great a value pick as you can get right now. I'll back that up with the Giants. Houston 1-6-1 on the year, another team that's given up looking for that first pick overall as well. So I go Raiders first, Giants second.
Yeah, Giants are one of my top ones. I also think the Niners, if you haven't used the Niners against the Chargers, I think that's a good way to go. I think that you can take a chance with the Titans going against the Broncos. I just don't see them losing to the Broncos. So if you have all your big teams taken, then I would go for the Titans. So those are my picks as well. But we are unfortunately out of time. But before we do sign off, Robert, do you want to give any words of advice or thoughts for the audience?
Yeah, it's been really, really an incredible year in terms of how many underdogs win outright. So again, we kind of led off with the Buffalo game. If you know that a key injury is coming in on a team, it's probably not going to bounce the other way. So if you're looking ahead to a game that's being played on Sunday and it's only Monday, and you could see that key injury happening, go ahead and grab that dog very early. And that's how you could lock in that future value, because after all, the worst thing that happens is that number stays the same, as we see here in that Buffalo instance. It's now down to 3.5. It can't go any higher, right? If Allen locked in, it'll probably close 3.5. But if he's declared out, I'll probably close the game 2.5. So if you're forecasting early on a Monday, making your own lines, and you're seeing some key injuries present, and you're waiting for that line to pop that dog early.
Yep, couldn't agree more myself. I would say my thing is again, there's so many factors to take in account when you are betting a game. We were talking about the Germany game today or earlier in this podcast with the Seahawks and the Bucks. I mentioned that time difference, jet lag, how much you got to be in a plane to travel. All of those little factors, if you're looking for any kind of advantage, those all just the little things can make a difference with how you bet a game. So when you do study lines, just don't look at the line. Just don't even look at only the injury report. Consider everything: the weather, who who's hot, who's not, how you play in a dome compared to how you play outside. Every factor you can think of to bet, always consider it. So that's my little tidbit for the day.
Love it.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have. And we thank you again. Robert and I will be back on Monday to recap all the craziness for the week. And go Giants. Take care.